You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
We're recording this podcast on July 2nd, 2024. It's not safe for work.
Very much not safe for work. Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we are the most self-important podcasters in 100 miles. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal. Hey, Blue Gal.
Apparently, self-important podcasters got their ball sacks crushed by the President of the United States this week.
Hey,
and
brother.
Deservedly so.
Hey, brothers, we hear you. Where do you think we got the name Professional Left from? I think a lot of those self-important podcasters were working in the Obama administration at that time.
I'm kind of surprised that Barack Obama hasn't dropped a dime and said, look, guys, cool it.
Back off, shut up, whatever, you know.
Yeah, but, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, maybe he'll come on our podcast to do that.
It's he always could. Barack Obama, you're invited on our podcast anytime.
We're in Springfield. We are in Springfield.
Springfield.
You announced your campaign, 2 miles from here.
And I was there when you announced that Joe Biden was your running mate.
Yeah.
So
and the town elders are still grouching about the fact all these years later that Obama didn't pay the $35,000 for security overtime that he promised he would. Which is why they wouldn't vote for the black guy. That's whatever.
I don't believe that because I met with two police officers. I met with two police officers that day in a restaurant.
Yep.
Actually, 3. No, there were 3 sitting at the restaurant. And I said, I'm so impressed with you guys being here and all that you have to do. And they looked at me and they said, we're not doing anything. The snipers on the roofs are doing everything. And, this was when he had Secret Service protection. This was when Biden. By this time, he had Secret Service. And he's like, "We're here later," and this was the thing. We're here tonight when all these out of towners are getting drunk. That's when we're gonna go to work.
Yeah.
And then I said, "Well, it's still golden time for you, isn't it?" And one of them said, "Nah, it's not." But the other one of the 3 said, "You don't understand, ma'am. It's my day off." And the other guys just went, "Oh my God," because he was getting $96 an hour to come
double,
in,
triple
whatever
time,
whatever it was, union, it was whatever. But they just moaned that he got his day off fell when Obama showed up in town. So
and now I think we can be thankful that everything's calmed down a lot since then, and a lot of tempers. Everything's cooled off. Everybody's used to having a black president.
Everybody seems to have a real chill 4th of July week, aren't they? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, I started a sock. I started knitting a sock this morning. So
I know you did.
Things are zen in my world. But no, it's been a very upsetting week. Let's not sugarcoat it.
Yeah,
and since we last talked on a podcast, and we just had to stick to our routine and record on Thursday. We couldn't wait until the debate to do it.
Right.
And but we had the debate between the 2 major candidates for president, a collective pundit freakout over the poor public speaking job of one of those candidates for president during the first 30 minutes of that debate, almost complete silence over, number 1, the other candidate for president spewing a fire hose of lies for 45 minutes. And I will say there are a couple notable exceptions, but very little discussion in the mainstream media over the failure of CNN to fact check anything.
Oh, no. They got high-fived.
Yeah.
They were told they were doing a good job. They got
Dana
good boy
Bash did a great job. Great job moderating that debate. No, they didn't. CNN's dead to me.
And that night, not quite real time, but it was after the debate when everyone was just sort of slack-jawed at what they'd just seen. Yeah. It was, where the hell were the moderator? What the fuck was wrong with them? And will they be blah, 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 Jake Tapper, Dana Bash? I said, you don't get it. They're going to high-five each other and congratulate each other on what a great job of staying completely neutral and saying nothing and doing nothing.
Yeah.
You could have had, what was that, Zoltar from Big? 2 of those wax dummies just handing typed questions.
Fortunes out, yes.
Just that's it. That's all they did. And they were like but we did that so well, man.
We were so wooden in a really professional, quote unquote way. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, and then we had a little Supreme Court decision this week that said, nope, neither of these men is running for president anymore. They're running for emperor.
So, this all seems horrible.
So that's what's happening in the real world. Now, out there, the big bright world of pundits and etc. On a personal note, I had 2 doctor's appointments yesterday. That was very exciting because I don't stress out at all when I go to the doctor.
And then they take your blood pressure the minute you get there, and you're like, it's like off the charts because you're just so nervous. Yeah.
Well, on one of those appointments, they mixed me up with someone else with a similar name to me, and we had to do it all over again. So
and it was so funny. There were 2 patients there with your first name, and then there were 2 doctors with the same last name, which is a very unusual last name.
Yes.
So you were the wrong patient at the wrong doctor, and they're looking at the chart, and you're like, "You're not 86 years old."
So yeah, really, I thought
your date of birth is 1939. Wait a minute.
You quit smoking in what? Never? Oh, okay. It doesn't seem. Oh, wait a minute. I checked your height. Now, which one are you? What's your last name again? Yeah. Oh no, we got the wrong guy, and we had a big laugh, and I started all over again. But those really do stress me out a great deal, and having back-to-back ones.
And the morning one, I couldn't go with you, and I felt bad about that.
No, and that was the one that was.
Yeah,
I was stressing out. In fact, as you and I talked about, based on the 2 physicians I saw, this episode of the podcast should be called the I Heart Podcast.
Yes, the I Heart Podcast, just like our April Fool's Day episode was.
Yeah,
but anyway, we should thank everyone who donated to the GoFundMe to pay for all the emergency care you had over your eye.
And the doc said, come back in a month. I think you're doing okay. You're probably doing okay. There's still stuff going on in there, but it'll pass or whatever. But
and you don't have any more tears in your retina, which makes me really happy.
You're very happy. So I'm walking around yesterday with a thoroughly dilated eye trying to figure out what we're going to talk about on Tuesday. And then, of course, we're hurrying around this week prepping for birthdays.
Yes, middle child has a birthday this week.
Yeah. In fact, it's literally today, but the celebration is tomorrow because transportation from out of town for all the parties involved. And families arriving this week, and we're screwing around getting ready for that. And just for fun, I was looking for the perfect metaphor for this week, prepping this morning, trying to think about what would be the ideal kind of metaphor to encapsulate. Because, we're storytellers, Blue Gal. We tell stories. We like to tell the narrative that people could hang their hats on and live by. And just as we were doing that, there was, no kidding, a near fatal car crash practically outside our front door.
In front of our neighbor's house. Yes, our next door neighbor's house.
A huge boom and crash. There was no screech. There were no brakes. This person, the driver is really responsible. Was tooling down our street, probably doing 70 or 80. Hit a parked pickup truck. Yep. Knocked it 10 feet forward at least.
Exactly.
Totaled their own car.
Yep. And I saw the accident happen, and my immediate response was, okay, our neighbor who has the pickup truck and is elderly probably pulled over abruptly.
Right.
And parked and was in motion when he was rear-ended.
Nope.
And it turns out, no, he wasn't even up yet. He was his truck was just sitting there. Yep. And got rear-ended at such a high speed that the truck moved as if it was driving.
Right. And
so I called the police, our local constabulary, and they answered and took my information and so forth and asked if we needed an ambulance. And I had seen both people get out of the car, so I assumed they were not immediately in need of an
literally ambulatory. They were walking.
Yes, ambulatory, and gave them the information right away. The cops were here, and we didn't get involved. We were here to talk to them if they needed me, but they didn't knock on our door.
So my question is, which metaphor is appropriate? Is it now? Follow me now. Is it a car wreck that was completely avoidable, but because some dumbass did something dumbass, there's a car wreck?
Yeah.
Or is it, thank goodness, youngest child won't be here till tomorrow?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because had she been parked on the street in her car, this would have been a very different accident. and very different results. And you might recall my dear wife, when a couple times ago when she was visiting from school, as she was driving down the street, there were a group of people huddled under a tree pointing up.
Oh, yeah. And she stopped, right?
No, she went on and parked. And literally, as she's passing under the tree, got 10 feet away, 12 feet away.
Oh, that's right.
Enormous branch just splintered and collapsed into the street, where she would have been seconds earlier. So
we've already invested a lot of repair money into that car.
Yeah. Well, and we don't want her damaged either.
No, we don't want anyone damaged. And fortunately, no one was injured in this accident this morning. But it was loud. It was fast.
Right.
And it scared us. It scared everybody. And I think that is what this week is about. There was a loud, fast, corrupt, horrible thing that happened.
Or
that has snapped us, into a sense of horror about it.
Or is it a near miss where thankfully no one got hurt?
Yeah. I think that's not the case here.
No, I think you're right.
I'm very upset, and I think everybody's very upset by this very corrupt court doing what they did.
Well, and let's do it first. Let's address all the pundits and all the prognosticators. Sorry, I'm still shaken up by that accident. And all those self-important podcasters, and all of our Never Trumper allies who lost their shit, and the New York Times columnists, and the New York Times editorial board, and Ralph fucking Nader, who are not just freaking out, because you can freak out, but they feel compelled to use the platforms that they've been given, that they have, thanks to a vast public or corporations who hand them ways to talk to the public, to flood the public square with their hysteria. And not just flood the public square with their hysteria, but scream at anyone who isn't exactly as hysterical as they are. So here's some advice that they will definitely not follow.
Hey. Shut the hell up. Shut up. Shut up.
Skyler,
shut up.
Please
shut up.
stop.
Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up.
Yeah, so none of those people are going to shut up.
No.
No matter how many times we tell them to shut up. They're paid partly because they're paid not to shut up. But you know what I would do, Driftglass? If I was president of the United States, I've thought about this a lot. What I would do if I was president of the United States and the Supreme Court had just said I have absolute license to do whatever I wanted.
This could be the greatest night of our lives. But you're gonna let it be the worst. Oh, we're afraid to go with you, Pluto. We might get in trouble. Well, just kiss my ass from now on! Not me! I'm not gonna take this! Warmer, he's a dead man! Marmalade, dead! Niedermeyer! Dead! Pluto's right. Psychotic, but absolutely right. We gotta take these bastards. Now, we could fight them with conventional weapons. That could take years and cost millions of lives. No, in this case, I think we have to go all out. I think this situation absolutely requires a really futile and stupid gesture be done on somebody's part. We're just the guys to do it. Let's do it. Let's do it!
Like most of you, both of us have been at this a long time and seen what was coming down the pike from a long way off. And now it is here.
If it is not forbidden to look upon the breath of pestilence, then see, for it is here.
And we're not going to lie to you. We don't know how all this is going to end. And you know what? Nobody knows how this is going to end. But we do know how the next chapter has to start.
We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
As you might have noticed if you're on social media, or if you're talking to your family, or if you live in the world right now, it seems like everyone is angry at everyone. And social media is just this thicket of recriminations everywhere. And if you've seen The Bear, if you've watched The Bear like we have on Hulu, you will know what I'm talking about when I say that we have arrived in this country at the middle of the Seven Fishes episode.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should really watch The Bear because it's really good. Yeah. And you'll really, really be rewarded by that episode.
But I'll bet you if you look up The Bear Seven Fishes on YouTube, I'll bet there's a little snippet of it, and you could get the idea.
If you're looking for like ocean noises or whale sounds to calm you, do not watch that episode. It is not going to calm you down, but it is where we are. This is where people are right now.
Yeah.
And as usual, the people who've been given the megaphones, who are always given the biggest megaphones, are dominating the media. And you know what? At least some of that is understandable. We're not blind. This is another thing that just incredibly pisses me off. Has pissed me off for days, which is if you're not screaming at the top of your lungs in hysterics, then you're everything's okay. I guess everything's fine. Fuck you. Everything's fine. You're either in complete denial or you accept my version of hysteria about the story.
Mm-hmm.
There's no in between.
Mm-hmm.
There's no gradations. Either you're blind and stupid or you listen to Jake Tapper. Those are your two choices. And you know what? This isn't a funeral. So let's stop acting like it is. But this is actually very much like one of those you can never take back the stuff you're saying shouting match just before the divorce starts.
Lord.
Just before you file for that. Yeah.
I'm just thinking of the stories you've told me.
Yeah.
My ex-husband's Norwegian, so, there was a lot of bitterness, but not a lot of shouting.
No.
But that moment, you see that moment in dramas a lot. That moment where you could decide not to say it, but you decided to say it.
Yeah, you decided to say it, and now it's over. And now the world has changed.
Yes, and it's never going back to the way it was before, ever.
Nope.
Right?
And I was self-aware enough during my divorce to advise my ex, you are about to go to a place from which you can never return. You're about to say things you can never take back. Please be careful. And by God, she went there. And here we are. So that's history, and that's really none of your business or mine.
Right. It's over, and that's fine. But yeah.
That is this, except there's a million people shouting things that they can never take back. And it's very stressful. Or it's like arguing about putting mom and dad in hospice.
Oh, God. Very dramatic, emotional time, right?
Yeah. Maybe hospice isn't required. And I'm not talking about Joe Biden. Joe Biden, as far as I can tell, is a healthy adult man who has a speech impediment and occasionally probably shouldn't be trying to debate policy after 9 o'clock at night.
Right.
I get that. But I'm talking about our democracy. It feels like our democracy is not quite terminal, but it's very sick and it's very weak, and we don't know if it can recover. And if it can't...
And it's taken so many body blows. I mean, when you think about Citizens United... Citizens United is worse than what happened yesterday, because I think we can fix what happened yesterday. I'm not sure if the Congress has the will to fix Citizens United.
Well, the Congress would have to vote in majorities in both houses and supermajority in the Senate, and then it would have to be signed by a president who thinks that Citizens United should be, and that would have to be legislated.
Right.
And then it would go immediately to the Supreme Court, who would overturn it.
Yeah, no, it is, but it's a huge body blow to our democracy.
Right.
It allowed corporations to take over huge swaths of our politics.
Yeah, and they were already doing,
and that we would not have the Supreme Court we have today without Citizens United.
Right.
So I just keep going back to that, and I mean, I know there are other things that people keep going back to Nixon and how often, the dike held. Right, against the flood of corruption. Right. And now it's just, open the gates.
No, Nixon's been exonerated. Nixon should never have had to resign, because what he did...
Exactly. It's all right if the president does it. That's where his official duties.
Yeah.
Talking to John Dean about and getting money from B.B. Rebozo was all within his official duties.
It's all fine. It's all good.
Yeah.
He's telling the DOJ or the CIA to nuke the DOJ,
telling the IRS to run audits on all of his enemies.
All good. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's within his official purview. And right now we have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court of radical, corrupt, right-wing judges, all who were appointed by Republicans, and who were appointed by Republicans all the way back to George H.W. Bush.
Mm-hmm.
That's how long ago this plot has been moving towards fruition, and now it's here. And
in the past 20 years, none of those Republican presidents got a majority of the American people voting for them.
No. The only time they got a majority was 2004, George Bush. That's it.
Yeah.
Re-election. That was it. 18 years, how many elections, never got a majority of the vote. So they had been looking for a way to hang on to power. And now they're within striking distance because now they have a dead heat presidential race, a weakened incumbent, Joe Biden, a hysterical press who has blood in their teeth now and are just ripping, like, this is awesome. This is fucking awesome for ratings. We can just make this, we can milk this forever. Mm-hmm. This is Dean's Scream multiplied by 100. We can just beat this shit to death.
Right.
And if we can't recover, if the democracy is that sick and we can't recover, we have very bad feeling about what's waiting for us on the other side of that failure. We have very bad feeling.
Yep. Someone once said that the real definition of a crisis was when something bad happens and suddenly no one knows what will happen next.
Yeah.
With that car accident, we knew the cops were going to come.
Right.
We knew there was going to be a tow truck that was going to come. We figured out that both people in the car were okay.
Yeah.
And so there was a process. Even though it was shocking and upsetting to see this happen, we knew it was going to happen next.
Well, and I think I remember that quote coming from Harlan Ellison. Talking about, excuse me very much, talking about the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, nobody knew what the hell had happened or why or what was next. Were we under attack? Were we at war? What the hell's going on? And it happened on live television.
Yeah.
And the assassination of the assassin happened on live television. And suddenly it's like,
that
what the
one
hell's
was
happening?
Really, yeah.
And the bottom, I mean, just to hear my mom and dad talk about it, the bottom fell out of their world. Like, what the hell just happened? That's a crisis. And that's what
compare that also to 1968, where I've heard multiple people tell me who were not 5 years old at that time, but were 25 at that time, say, Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy, it just felt like there was no earth anymore. Like everybody just gets shot, and the war and the violence at the convention and there's just no stability, period.
You know what I noticed? Nobody panics when things go according to plan. Even if the plan is horrifying. If tomorrow I tell the press that, like, a gangbanger will get shot, or a truckload of soldiers will be blowing up, nobody panics. Because it's all part of the plan. But when I say that one little old mare will die, well, then everyone loses their minds.
And all of that is what we're going through today. Now, not all of us. Some of us are oblivious to what's going on today. And we have more to say about those people later. But a crisis which was just made 1,000 times worse because that radical, corrupt Supreme Court majority just signed off on the American equivalent of the 1933 German Enabling Act. If you don't know what that is, let me tell you what that was. It started in February of 1933 with the Reichstag fire, which is the German Reichstag caught fire. There was probably a communist who did it. The Nazis used it to whip up public freak out over the communists. And so Adolf Hitler used this as a justification to pressure Weimar President Paul von Hindenburg to enact the Reichstag Fire Decree. Now, that preceded the Enabling Act. The Reichstag Fire Decree abolished most civil liberties, including the right to free speech, the right to assemble and protest, have due process, all that good stuff that we Americans like so much. And using the decree, the Nazis declared a state of emergency. Like the Insurrection Act. If a president decided to announce that the Insurrection Act has been invoked and the National Guard will be militarized. And they used that to begin a violent crackdown of their political enemies, the Night of the Long Knives, and getting rid of their opposition. So Hitler contended that, no, that decree was actually insufficient. It wasn't enough. And the government required even more dictatorial powers. Got to have more power concentrated in fewer hands. And so, in March of 1933, the German parliament passed the Enabling Act, and they did it by a large majority. And that act allowed Hitler to ignore the German constitution and blow off the parliament and enact whatever new laws he wanted by decree. So today, we're just going to talk to you and to each other like grown-ups. No news roundup today, maybe a little one at the end. No Science Fiction University today, maybe some other time.
Right. And this was usually, we should have done Science Fiction University last week, and we were going to do it this week. And then the Supreme Court did what they did, like, oh, that would be really inappropriate.
Yeah.
So, we watched Dark Matter, and we'll talk about it at some point. Maybe we'll record something over the weekend. I don't know. But we were
going to do a Science Fiction University about a dystopian theocratic government take over the United States. But we thought, you know what? Maybe not today, Drift Class. Maybe that's not a good one for today.
Yeah. And maybe I'll just skip ahead to that one. That, the thought that has come to me this week since that Supreme Court decision is Handmaid's Tale, which I know is a little bit overused, I think, these days as an analogy. But as I've said before, Margaret Atwood didn't sit down and decide to write a dystopian fantasy novel.
Right.
She collected an archive of what happens to women in authoritarian governments around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that is in that book, which, by the way, you can go watch the Hulu show. You can go watch, Elizabeth Moss is amazing. And they did a really good job, particularly with the parts of the show that are the book, I thought was really, really good. But the book is wonderful to read. It's just an amazing piece of literature. If you hadn't sat down to read it, I think it's a really good read. And I read it when it came out in the 80s. And Margaret Atwood put together an archive of these newspaper articles. And so everything in that book is something that has happened somewhere in the world. Women having their bank accounts shut down. Mm-hmm. Women being required to breed. Their reproductive rights removed. Just segregated. Women segregated in societies. So there's just a lot in that book. First, all of it is based in fact. On this earth, things like this happened. Mm-hmm. And she put it all together and made it, in one place at one time to make it a story and had a heroine and so forth, and gave it a plot and put it together. And that's the genius of a novelist. But to me, this week, the slow road to Gilead that we've been on, not just Dobbs, but all of the other things. We've sort of been on this authoritarian road. When I knew something was really, really bad and really, really off, when in 2016, the Republican platform had one change in it, and it was Ukraine.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like, shit. Putin has his, and I thought it was money. I thought Putin's giving money to Trump. That was my thought. Putin's giving money, somehow slipping money to the Trump campaign. It was so much worse than that.
Yeah.
But I figured through Manafort, they got Manafort on here to funnel money to the Trump campaign. And that's how this is working. It was so much more corrupt than that. But, the slow road to Gilead got a lot faster this week.
It did.
And the masks are completely off. And there are 6 justices who simply think no one can touch them. And
they're right.
Yeah.
And they're currently right. And, we talked a little bit about Middle Child's birthday coming up. Mm-hmm. And Middle Child is concerned. And Middle Child's not a flighty person. She's a serious, thoughtful, intelligent young woman.
Yep.
Very, very deeply engaged with her community. Well-read. She is my wife's daughter. What can I say? She is all those
better
things.
Traveled than I am.
Yeah.
Spent time in Southeast Asia this spring for school. Yeah.
And she is concerned that we're heading for a civil war.
Yeah.
And this is, there are times when you like to tell your kids, don't worry. I hate to use a metaphor like this, but aliens. Mm-hmm. Why do people tell their kids there are no monsters? Because usually there aren't. Mm-hmm. With Newt and Ripley, you know, and I'd love to be able to reassure everyone's kids. I'd love to be able to reassure everyone listening to this that we're not headed down that road. That's crazy. But it's not impossible, except as you noted, it might be fought by accountants instead of armies.
Yeah. Because if I was president, I would move the military bases. If some state, for instance, decided to secede from the Union, and that kind of talk has diminished somewhat since the days before Trump, when there were people with, you know, all hat and no cattle saying Texas ought to secede.
Yep.
But if that were to happen, first of all, it's wrong of me to assume that it would be a right-wing state that would secede.
That's true. That's true.
But if it was a right-wing state that seceded from the Union, I'd shut off the Social Security checks and the Medicaid checks to nursing homes and blockade the highways, and anyone with a Texas driver's license doesn't get out, and there's no dual citizenship.
Nope.
And we'll work all that out, but you're not going to sue us because you have no standing in the courts because you've seceded from the Union.
Yep. Yep.
And if I could do it, I'd shut off the cell phone service.
Yep.
And
that's
cut off the power. And, you know, I know Texas that's one of the reasons Texas has its own power grid that fails all the time. Is they have this fantasy that they don't need to be connected to the upper 48 for that reason. That's the thinking behind that, is we can, if we can survive with that, we don't need the United States of America, the rest of the country.
And we have friends and loved ones in those sorts of states.
We do. We have people we really care about in Texas.
And in Florida and in other places that have lost their goddamn mind. In Arizona, Colorado.
Right.
We love those people. And yet if we are in a state of civil war, then that's that.
Yeah.
You know, I wish it weren't so, but that's that. And it's important. And I think we do this pretty regularly and pretty honestly with our listeners, being very realistic about what we are up against. Not hysterical, not Pollyannish, just as realistic as it can be. We're up against a right-wing native fascist party that is unified and that is fanatical, and that's insane. And we should stop treating them like decent citizens and friends and relatives. They are. And
I want to be clear that my plan, all this planning I'm doing in my head of cutting off Social Security and Medicare, people that know me know that I'm not trying to keep anyone from Social Security and Medicare.
No.
I'm trying to bring the governor of Texas to his knees immediately.
No,
I want that secession to be over in 48 hours, and that's how I do it.
No, we were thrilled with the passage of the Affordable Care Act, as flawed as it was, not just because we could get on the exchange and get insurance for our family, but so that everyone could.
Yeah.
As bad as it was, as imperfect as it was better than what we had. And we wanted we want Medicare for all. I mean, let's be clear. There's a whole long list of things that we want that we're not going to see in our lifetimes, probably.
And I will tell you all, you know, living in the middle of nowhere in Springfield, Illinois, our health insurance premium is higher than our mortgage payment.
Yep, it is.
Two of us over 60. We insure youngest child as well on the exchange. She stays on our insurance. But, you know, with Driftglass in the ER, with what we thought might be a serious blinding eye problem. And it would have been 5 times as much without health insurance.
Oh, yeah.
And we can't afford that.
I'm doing my part to burn through my deductible as fast as possible.
He's doing it. He's really doing it.
I was going to do like a fortune cookie, run out to the traffic accident and go, oh, my neck. My neck. Oh, my Lord. My neck is hurting. And try to get through the last little bit of that deductible. And then everything's cake from then on. Just
honestly. For 2024, for the rest of 2024, you're going to have all the EKGs they can hand you.
What else can I get? What's on the menu? I'd like a little bit of everything. Really? I don't want that stuck in me anywhere. But other than that, we're good. But to be realistic, the right is unified, and they're crazy and they're fanatical.
Yeah.
And you and I chatted earlier, because this is just part of our ongoing conversation about, you know, are they all that way? And I think it breaks down a little bit like the base really is that way. The base are at this point enemy combatants in a Cold War. And the leadership of the party, the elected Republican officials, are 70% cool with the fascism who've come in with the MAGA wave.
Well, I thought it was really odd that Mike Johnson said that it's only the vice president and president that are subject to this immunity, and we know that no one of bad moral character will be elected to those offices.
No, why would you think that's odd? He's a fucking liar.
Yeah,
and he's lying on Fox News. He's lying to a bunch of cattle who will go, everything we do is morally correct, and God loves us. He's just a leader. He's a leader of a cult. He's a minor leader.
Can I ask you a question though, Driftglass?
Of course.
How many or how? I'll ask you how many. How many of the Republicans, Trump voters from 2016 and 2020 are now on the off ramp at this point?
4.
I was going to say probably 10 to 15%.
Okay, I like your number better.
Are Nikki Haley now never Trumpers?
I have no idea, and no one knows. No one knows. Yeah. That's the point. I have absolute faith in that conservatives will almost always do the worst thing possible. Mm-hmm. I have never lost a bet betting on how deeply they hate this country. They love their country.
And I do think one of the reasons Nikki Haley did so well in the Indiana primary was he tried to kill their former governor.
Yeah, maybe so.
And that's personal.
But voting for Nikki Haley is strictly performative. It's their way of saying, I did what I could. I tried. Now I have to vote for Trump.
Now I have to go vote for Trump. Yeah.
I tried. But the distance between Nikki Haley and Trump is, I'm holding my hands up about a foot apart. Mm-hmm. Between Trump and Biden is 1,000,000 miles.
Oh yeah.
So it's no brainer. And Nikki Haley has endorsed Donald Trump.
Yes, she has.
Yep.
And what I'd like to know what moment from the debate stuck out to you. The one that stuck out to me as the most astounding lie, and they were all astounding lies. But him looking straight at the camera and saying, "I didn't sleep with a porn star."
Yeah, and go ahead. That and the blank expression on the 2 wax dummies who were moderating it, going, "Okay, next question."
Yeah,
you know, it just and this is where I've been, having a Twitter fight with people like Bruce Bartlett, who I like. Mm-hmm. He's a never Trumper I like, but it's like the rules of debate say moderators are supposed to sit there and do nothing and ask questions and occasionally, try to guide the discussion. Bullshit. Candy Crowley in 2012 stepped into the debate because she was asked to. What about the record? This was about something that Barack Obama said about terrorists or terrorism or it was a terrorist attack, and Mitt Romney was lying about it. He was lying about it because all he was doing was reading Fox News and watching, a bunch of bullshit right-wing talking points, and he thought he had them. And like every other occasion where they think they have them, it's based on bullshit. It's based on a lie. And so Mitt Romney walked right into it. And at no point would it have been sufficient for Barack Obama to simply disagree and say, well, I guess no one knows. It's an unknowable fact. Who can? Mm-hmm. Right. And he said, well, Candy. And she says, actually, Governor, he didn't say it, or he did say it. And then Obama said, thank you. Could you repeat that again, Candy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it was really important to have a third party there, to have a referee there, not just someone looking at the ball as they cross the plate, but calling balls and strikes. And that is something that CNN explicitly abandoned during that debate. So it was the memorable moment in that debate for me will be Donald Trump staring into the camera and lying his ass off for 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's like, which lie was the worst? That one was the most obvious and most stupid. But, well,
I thought it was stupid because many of his followers are proud of him for sleeping with the porn star.
Well, that's the point.
He's a stud for doing that.
The point about lying about it is, look what I can do. I can sit up here in front of 50 million people, lie my fucking ass off, and no one's going to put me in jail. No one can stop me. No one can stop us. Yeah. We can do whatever the fuck we want. We have absolute immunity. We can do whatever we want.
Absolute immunity. Yeah. Now my porn star case can go away. Yes,
I can sit there and piss in Jake Tapper's face.
Yeah.
And he'll just smile and wet his lips and move on.
We'll be right back. Yes.
Because that's what journalism is all about, honey. That's what journalists do. Yeah. Yeah. So the right is unified and crazy. The far left, the small number of far left people are terrible and nuts, and they are loud on social media, but ignore them. we do have foreign interference going on in this election. We sort of know that. We have people deciding, this is awesome. We can take out the United States. That means NATO. That means unrestricted access to Europe for Russia. That everybody's dream comes true if the last nominal democracy superpower is in the hands of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. A whole bunch of people get better when that happens. And the media, as we've noted, is out for blood. They've got blood in their teeth. They like the taste of it. They always like the taste to it. Now it's the Dean's scream plus Hillary's emails plus. This is their dream come true. This is something they can talk about because they will not talk about the fact that Trump lied for 45 minutes because that's just baked into the cake. Brian Stelter said, well, this election is now about Joe Biden's performance. Well, says who? You? Who the fuck are you? He's decided that that's what it's about, as opposed to, and the reason is, well, everyone knows Trump's a liar and his followers don't care. I'm like, okay, gotcha. Why isn't that the story? Why isn't the story you tell that these people really are reprogrammable meatbags? Why is that not the front page headline in the New York Times every day? And the answer is because the New York Times does not want to be bombed out of existence by a fucking mob of people who will track them to their homes and murder them. They would like to we can't get the right angry with us because, first of all, we kind of hate the Dems anyway. Secondly, none of this is affecting us. Third,
and we love it to keep our tax cuts.
We love our tax cuts and we want to keep things the way they are. And, we're the fucking New York Times. We're above it all. And so it's just easier to kick Democrats and everything's always going to be great for John McCain. This is great news for John McCain because it's always terrifying to take on the right because the right has an entire media system that can turn on them just like Trump did at his rallies and point back at the people in the pen saying, these are the fucking enemies of the state. These are the people who are trying to kill you. You should get at them first. And how I would love to see you beat the shit out of those people. They are aware of the fact that of what fascists do to journalists. And they're trying to cut a deal before fascism arrives on our shores to make sure that when they come for NBC, they can say, oh, but we got Katie Tur. We got Katie Tur.
But he's going to say, I'm changing the deal. Pray I do not change it again.
Yeah. And half the public is oblivious. That's the other thing. There's just a lot of people out there who aren't paying any fucking attention to this at all. And they're unreachable. I don't know what to do about them. They're ineducable. They're busy. If we interrupt the Bachelorette, they might notice something's going on. But you can sort of count them out of the equation. You can go after them if you want. If you have $100 million to go after those people, that's great. But it's not a viable strategy. I think, and now I'm going to do some actual quoting, the very good advice from a guy named Robert Welch II on Twitter. Quote, brush your teeth, wash your butt, get vaccinated, don't eat dogs, avoid worms. I think we know who he's referring to.
Shout out to RFK Jr. Yeah.
Stop listening to Jake Tapper cry like a pimp who didn't get paid. Cancel the New York Times. Laugh at Bill Maher, not with him. Vote for Biden, and please shut the fuck up. Unquote. Now we're obviously not shutting the fuck up because we have a podcast. But
we don't want our listeners to shut the fuck up either.
And
I love hearing from you. You guys know that.
So, because of the events of the last week and the last year and the last several years, effectively there are no checks and no balances anymore at all. A president can do whatever the fuck the president wants to do. We're electing a king or an emperor. And therefore, unfortunately, everything about the country, what gets done, what doesn't get done, what gets prioritized or not prioritized, who gets bombed, civilians are going to be rounded up, peaceful protesters shot or not, depends entirely on the moral character of the person who occupies the Iron Throne. And it shouldn't be that way. The country was founded on the exact opposite premise as we approach the 4th of July. The irony is not lost on me. But right now, the only thing keeping this nominal democracy from flying apart is the moral character of whoever the hell is in the White House. And I will vote for Joe Biden's head in a jar before I consider voting for anyone else or supporting anyone. Or if Joe Biden and his circle of advisors, and I don't want to hear another rumor from Ken Delanian about what the hell's going on behind closed doors because they don't know shit all about anything.
They don't know shit.
But if the people who are around Joe Biden and his family and his vice president and former presidents who are Democrats get together and figure, you know what, our best chance is Joe stepping aside and putting Kamala Harris in. I will vote for Kamala Harris. I'll campaign for her and work as hard for her.
And I'm voting for Kamala Harris for vice president.
Absolutely.
Because she is competent and she is capable.
Yep.
And she is the safety that we need.
Right.
If Joe Biden cannot complete his term, I am content. Well, and if you are not content, you need to ask yourself, I wonder why.
I wonder why. Well, remember that Dan Quayle was George H.W. Bush's, what they called at the time, assassination insurance.
Yeah.
Because the idea that Dan Quayle would take over was so frightening that no one would consider offing George H.W. Bush. But that's not the point of a vice president. The point of a vice president is someone who can step in and do the job. Yeah. I never, I never doubted that Al Gore could do it.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that Kamala Harris can do it. However, Blue Gal, what do we know about Kamala Harris just from reading pundits on social media?
Oh, Lord.
Here's what we know. That if she were called upon to replace Joe Biden at the top of the ticket, here's what we know for a fact just by reading social media. She's completely hapless and she's terrible. She's also ready and tested. She's a cop and no better than Trump or Genocide Joe. And revolution now. The only solution to everything is revolution. Tear it all down. She would definitely lose because no one likes her. She would definitely win because she's awesome. She could be pushed aside in favor of a white candidate with no downside.
That's absolutely the one I hear a lot, and I just roll my eyes.
Yeah, a lot of white guys think.
A lot of white guys think she doesn't have enough gravitas, and you know what that's a signal for.
Look, honey, we know what's best. Okay. So sit over there and we'll figure some shit out and we'll let you know what your job's going to be in the new administration.
Yeah, and you'll consult with your little teeny tiny white penis in the shower and come out and reveal to us what is truth. Yes, okay.
Finally, pushing her aside in favor of a white candidate would tear the party apart and guarantee a Trump win. All of these things are true on social media simultaneously. And millions of people are shouting them in every direction. I know what I believe. I know what I think. I think she'd be a perfectly fine president. I think she'd be great. I think it would be awesome. I think we deserve a president like Kamala Harris. I think we deserve a president like Pete Buttigieg. I think we deserve a lot of things that we're probably not going to get. But whoever the Democrats decide to run for office, I hope it's Joe Biden and I hope he does better. I'm voting for him and I'm campaigning for him and I'll push hard for him because the alternative is the road to Gilead, which we're almost there.
We're already on. Yeah. Yeah. We're on that road. And you know what else we deserve here in Illinois? We deserve J.B. Pritzker.
We do.
And love him. And in local news, from the desk of our governor, J.B. Pritzker signed 48 bills into law this week.
Yes, he did.
He sent out on social media support and a great deal of I want to say another word other than support, but
love, a great deal of
love and support for trans youth and their parents.
Right.
One of the bills he signed creates a Department of Early Childhood.
Yeah.
And I think we're looking toward, Michigan has announced this, just going with universal pre-K in the state of Illinois, because waiting for the Senate to do something is not soon enough.
No.
48 bills. And some of them, what was the one that was your favorite? I can't remember.
I read through the summary of each one. And there are a lot of them, but it was, my favorite was like approving a change in the minimum gauge of shot to be used on a shotgun when hunting turkeys.
For the ROTC turkey shoot.
I think it was like 20 gauge down to 410. I'm not sure. I read it a little while ago. I'm probably getting the numbers wrong, which means I don't know anything about guns, which means I don't have the right to an opinion about gun control. Fuck you. No, but it was like rejiggering some boards. Yeah. And some legislation was to get rid of obsolete language that was in this stuff. Yeah. And promoting things and changing things and school funding. And it was boring government shit.
Yeah.
Boring ass government. This is what government does. 90% of what government does is this stuff. And that's what our right-wing lunatic neighbors don't understand, is that the government is not a giant conspiracy to take away your freedoms. It's this stuff. And they've been convinced, they have convinced themselves, they've let themselves be lied to believe we need to burn all that shit down because it's a George Soros communist liberal conspiracy. And we need to install strong man to fix it all. And you know what? In blue state America, in Illinois, it's fixed. It's not utopia. We have our problems. Shit, Chicago has a crime problem. Chicago's had a crime problem since the 30s. You know? But the truth of the matter is that for a large and diverse state, which is larger in population than the Roman Empire, I think whatever, or Rome was anyway, we have a lot of good stuff going on, and a lot of people in the state are pretty happy with the way our government is doing things. We've got legal pot. We actually protect women's rights in this state. We have people traveling to the state so they can get here.
A lot of people traveling to the state to get health care. Yes.
We like to be an example to other people. So this boring daily show up to work on behalf of the people and sign bills into law, that's how government's supposed to work. And we are a living example right here. One of the other things, if you don't mind me branching out from that, because I don't want to end with J.B. Pritzker, me bragging about J.B. Pritzker, because everyone thinks we're just showing off, because, you know, because life in blue state America will go on, whatever happens. It'll be bad. It'll be unpleasant if worse comes to worse, but we're still here, and we're still the majority in this country. And in these enclaves across the country, life will go on, I'm hoping, pretty much as is, except we will all be dedicated to overthrowing the fascist government of the United States.
Right.
By any means necessary.
Right.
Now, the last thing that really bugged the shit out of me was the number of people I've run into on social media who are experts on what other people think. You know, they know, okay, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden, right? But people, like what people? Be specific, which people? Well, people, people out there. And the lesson I've learned paying attention to the pundits and people and voters who think that they're pundits. Everyone thinks they're a fucking pundit, is that lazy, omniscient language is the bread and butter of pundits. So rule of thumb, when you hear people talking about what the people think or the people believe or not what I believe, mind you, that's not me. That's people over there. Or what the American people believe, or what voters believe, or what Congress is going to do. You can safely tell your brain to stop listening to that person because they have no idea. They're either too lazy or they're covering up the fact that the people they're talking about are not what they want to talk about. So when you talk about Congress fucking us over, what they really mean to say is Republicans in Congress. But they can't say that because then the mob will come for them.
Yeah, yeah. The people in Washington are doing X, Y, and Z.
Politicians in Washington. Tell politicians in Washington not to mess with our technology or penis drugs. Okay, whatever, man. That's great. We also wanted to mention, do you want to talk about the vice president wife Tinder accounts or no?
Well, we were watching Die Hard 2 the other night, and Fred Thompson is in that movie.
Yeah.
And I said, Fred Thompson's dead. And you went, yeah, he's dead. And I said, wonder what happened to Mrs. Fred Thompson. Mrs. Fred Thompson, you may recall, was a much younger, very busty blonde woman.
She was going places.
She was definitely going places. And I said, I wonder what's happened to Mrs. Fred Thompson. He said, you said she was on Second Lady Tinder. And that she was real mad that Tim Pawlenty was married, but maybe she could hook up with Doug
Burgum. Doug Burgum's looking pretty good.
Doug Burgum's looking pretty good.
He's hot. He looks pretty good. He's hot. So, yeah, this is the sort of thing we do.
Late at night, this is the sort of thing that Driftglass does to make me laugh. Second Lady Tinder.
Second Lady Tinder.
I want to be the vice president's wife, goddammit.
Who? All right. So, would you like to close this out, baby?
Well, I just want to note that in other news, Steve Bannon is in prison and Rudy Giuliani is disbarred.
Oh, that's right. Today
there is some sunshine.
Yeah, Danbury, Connecticut got a new resident.
Yeah.
Today.
Well, after being on network television for interviews.
Right. Got to interview him. Got to interview Steve Bannon and find out what he thinks.
Newsmaker Steve Bannon. Yeah. No. Hey, a lot of things are changing. We're going to keep chopping wood and carrying water.
Yep.
That's what you got to do. Get up in the morning, chop wood, carry water. Before fascist dictatorships and after fascist dictatorships. And this corrupt court has shown their ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you and I, Driftglass, do have the advantage of having read history.
Yes.
And having a sense of living through history. And I think, who was it that said...
Rick Perlstein on
Twitter
Twitter said...
What did he say?
He said, oh, so this is what history feels like.
This is what history feels like.
Yeah,
Living through the time when there was the most corrupt Supreme Court ever.
And the most corrupt presidential candidate who
ever.
Might actually get elected. The first multiple felon rapist president.
Yeah.
Well, rapist, no, that's not true.
Who's bankrupting his own party, by the way.
Yeah.
Put his daughter-in-law in charge of the party to grift the money.
Yeah. And
38 seats in the House, Driftglass. I'm still standing by my prediction. We're going to gain 38 seats.
Come what may, we're still going to be here week in, week out. And we're going to do Science Fiction University next week or a month from now or whatever. And we'll get back to No Fair Remembering stuff because we really enjoy that. And that does lend a sense of context and history to what we're going through now, we think.
Yep. And we appreciate you guys and all of your support of our work. Thank you.
We do. Absolutely.
One thing that will not change is that each week we will go right on posting an Internet Kitty sent in by you, the listeners, to our Facebook page and website. This week's Internet Kitty is Rhiannon.
Oh.
Rhiannon is a tortie who pouts when her human leaves the house. So they got her this space backpack that's like you put the cat in a backpack and it's got a plastic dome over it. In this picture, she's inside the backpack with the dome. So she can go on nature walks safely with her human carrying her on this domed backpack. And in this picture, she's riding in the space age backpack. But the thing is, Rhiannon is now happy to be in the space age backpack while the human walks around the house.
They'll do that to you.
Carry me.
The cats will train you. Cats will definitely train you.
We are evidence of that.
Yes, we are.
Bosco sometimes gets carried to the litter box. Yes, he does.
Yes. He just looks at you and sniff looks like, well,
look, I'm sniffing the carpet.
Which is it going to be now?
What is it going to be?
Mm-hmm. Okay, fine.
Yeah, behaviors. So you can go visit Rhiannon at our Facebook page and website. And of course, Rhiannon eats freshly poured cat food, our sponsor. Whether you serve Pet Store Perfection or Dollar Store Drek, your cat will ask you to carry them to the kitchen and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured.
Freshly poured, oh my Lord, it's freshly poured.
Yep, go visit Rhiannon at our Facebook page or website. She's sitting there in her clear plastic dome space backpack. And you can send your Internet Kitty, dog, or other pet to us, and a goofy picture is just fine, to our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, where you can also write to both of us. That address goes right into both of our email addresses. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go Postal Unions! Letter on the air, unless you say otherwise. And happy Independence Day. Happy birthday to Middle Child. We love you, Middle Child.
Yes, we do. Don't forget our gourmet coffee guidelines. As I said earlier, Blue Gal, if you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for us, buy one for yourself. You deserve it. Knock yourself out. This still is not a charity. This still is our job. Believe it or not, this is our job. We can scarcely believe it sometimes, but it feels good to do this kind of work. It really does. I don't feel like a money grubbing monster. I feel like I'm bringing good into the world and by bringing my wife's voice and my voice to you guys. So maybe I'm wrong. I'm just a self-important podcaster, but either way, send us $5 if you can. If you can spare it, do it. Please spare $5 at patreon.com/proleftpod. And please share our show on social media. That's how we become self-important. And if you love this podcast, please get someone else to listen to it. And thank you so much for doing that.
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties would much rather be talking about science fiction or anything else, but maybe next week.
See you guys next week.
Let's think about living.
Think about living.
Let's think about loving.
Think about loving.
Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the loving, lovey-dovey.
Lovey-dovey-dovey.
Let's forget about the whine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional F podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.